Hello, Miami. You're watching 305 Sports Now, your home podcast and channel for all things Miami sports related. I am Will.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me.
Hey, what's up, Miami? Once again, I am your host, Will, and thank you for watching and listening to 305 Sports Now. The guest I am bringing on today is a very special guest, and he is a very, very well decorated Miami Dolphin, and hopefully soon will be in the Hall of Fame because of all his accolades that he had as a player. So let me just read you his accolades and all his accomplishments in his professional football career. First things foremost, he is a two-time first-team All-Pro in 1992 and 1994 for the Fins, two-time second-team All-Pro in 1993 and 1995, seven-time Pro Bowler from 1990 to 1996. He is a member of the NFL All-Decade Team of the 1990s, and he's also Pro Football Writers of America NFL All-Rookie Team as well, and he's also a member of the Miami Dolphins Honor Roll Team inducted in 2006. Ladies and gentlemen, the man I am talking about is none other than the legendary left tackle for the Miami Dolphins, Richmond Webb. How you doing, Richmond? How's it going?
Will, what's going on today? How you doing, sir?
I'm doing just fine. It's nice and sunny here in South Florida. We were talking earlier for the show. How's it over there in Houston, in your neck of the woods?
You caught me on a good day. It's actually about 75 degrees. It was a little chilly this morning, mid 40s or whatever, but it's 75. It's beautiful out there today.
Well, thank you for joining us. And I just read all your accolades, but I want to go back in time a little bit. It's 1990, and you're coming out of Texas A&M. And what is going through your mind on draft night? You were selected ninth by the Miami Dolphins. Okay, but what is going on in the mind of Richmond Webb that evening?
Well, the draft has changed tremendously from when I got drafted. A few guys would go to New York or whatever, but it's changed so much now to they move it around to each city, and it's a red carpet event, so they do an outstanding job with the draft now. I was able to actually participate in, I think it was 2018. I went to Nashville, me and my wife, and we had a great time. But back then, I actually was at my home, or my parents' home in Dallas, and I watched the draft with them. But before the draft, I do remember it was on a Sunday. Definitely nervous because you had an expectation, you got all the projections and this and that, but you don't know until actually a team selects you. But that morning before the draft started, I heard from the Dolphins, I heard from the Raiders, the Saints, and maybe another team, and everybody kept saying the same thing. If you're there when we pick, we're going to take you, this and that. But I say they probably called two or three guys because you just don't know what's going to happen, this and that. But I can remember very nervous because at one time a lot of people were projecting me to go to. It was back then. It was the San Diego Chargers, but now they're the Los Angeles Chargers, and they ended up taking Junior Seau, which I figured they might because he went to USC and great pick, and it was a great pick for them. And then the sixth pick. Then the seventh pick was, I think, Detroit. They had Andre Ware. They ran the run and shoot back then. And then the eighth pick was actually Chris Singleton to New England. And when they picked him, my phone started ringing. And I picked the phone up, and it was actually Coach Shula on the phone. And he said, "Hey, is this Richmond?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Are you ready to be a Dolphin?" I said, "Yes, sir." And at that point, I was happy that I could breathe because now the waiting part of it was over, and man, I was so happy. And I had prayed, before the draft. I just said, Lord, send me somewhere warm, and I ended up in Miami. So he answered my prayer, and then getting to play for a coach like Coach Shula, I kind of knew about him from watching like Monday Night Football. We watched the games in college, but I grew up a Cowboys fan, and I always kind of put him in that same
Yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
area with like Tom Landry, this and that. Just one of the best to always ever do it. Had tremendous respect for him, so that was a plus for me. So I was definitely happy to be going to Miami.
Yeah. Speaking of Coach Shula, a l- members of my family have dealt with him before, and he's the nicest guy, off the field. And I've had friends that like when he was when he visited a medical facility, he was very cordial. He's very cordial with my sister, who knew him personally before he passed. But I hear some stories from Joe Rose, who coached the Coach Shula, the coach, comparable to Coach Shula outside of practice. Can you tell us, give you some feedback on how Coach Shula was? 'Cause I heard he was super old school. Didn't matter what generation of player you were. He'd say, you fill us in on how Coach Shula was?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Joe Rose and the other two is either Larry Little or Zonka. I love to hear them tell stories because they do such a good job of kind of like putting you right there at the scene with him. But if you played for him, you kind of laugh because he was the same whether it was the 70s, 80s, 90s, or whatever. But um, like I started laughing when you said, off the field. Off the field, Coach Hu was the nicest guy. But when we were, in practices, in the games, he demanded excellence and he always focused on the little things, penalties, mental errors, knowing your assignments, this and that. And well, I don't think I know that's why he had so much success because in the NFL, everybody got great players, this and that. It's being about being able to execute and making the less mistakes because a lot of times that can determine whether you win or lose a football game. And he was always a stickler to that from the time I got there and even before I got there. So when I hear guys like Joe Rose tell those stories, I was like, man, we didn't play together, but it sounds like we were teammates because you can relate to what, when he's telling a story. But very tough coach, but he loved his players.
Yeah.
And once you kind of figured that out, I mean, he was tough, hard nosed, but he genuinely cared about his players. And I think that's why people loved him. You knew you were gonna have to deal with him, if he was gonna ride you, this and that, but it was always to get the best out of you. And he was really good at doing that. And didn't matter the position you played or whatever. That was his special neck as far as developing players and getting them to be the best they can be.
Yeah. Jim Mandich had a great story. The late Jim Mandich had a great story about Don Shula, and he said, speaking of assignments, he said if you missed your assignment or had a mental error, you knew what Coach Shula had for breakfast in the morning. Is that the same case for yourself when playing in the '90s?
Yeah, I was laughing. I was telling somebody about that the other day. I can remember at times being in a game, and if I messed up on a play, um, you could just feel Coach Shula eyes just beaming at you from the sideline, even though you're in the huddle. And then when the series is over or whatever, when you're coming off the field, you can feel those eyes on you. And I would always try to angle and walk away from him, but I could feel him coming down the sideline to to, to meet me and maybe chew me out some more. But it was it was not to embarrass anything. It was like, hey, I expect more out of these, and that's why we were so good. You know what I'm saying? He just ran a tight ship, but you knew it. And then he would chew you out, and then he'd come back a few minutes later, say, "Hey, get your head in the game. Come on, we got to win this game. We need you." This and that. And so it was always out of love, and so I could always appreciate that. And I think most players, and I tell people this all the time: if you're a tough coach, but your players generally know you truly care about them, they'll run through a wall for you because they know it's genuine. But if they figure out you just BSing them and just tell them what they want to hear, you'll lose the locker room and you won't get them back. And that's why he was such a great coach.
Yeah. That's great to hear. So you came in, yeah, and played for a future Hall of Famer. You also blocked for a future Hall of Famer as well. When you got into the league, Dan Marino was already established quarterback as an elite quarterback. So Dan Marino, as just like Coach Shula, very competitive individual. In practice as well, also on game day, he was considered, and I still to this very day believe that the best pure passer in the game at the time. Um, you obviously you're blocking his blind side. You and Keith Sims, who made a very legendary duo. What was it like blocking for Dan Marino both in practice and also blocking for Dan Marino on Sundays as well and during the playoffs?
Yeah, I can remember when we got there, and I think we were going through minicamp, and the two guys that were the actual starters, they were veterans that were holding out of for negotiating contracts, so they wasn't at the minicamp or whatever. So right away, Coach Schuler throws me and Keith right in there, and then he puts us on the left side, which is the blind side of the quarterback, and that was almost unheard of. Put two rookies side by side, and then on the blind side of the quarterback. But we were in there, and we were in the huddle, and just the feeling of either Duper was here or Clayton. They kind of switch sides depending on the formation. But these were guys that you watched on television, and then you're almost like, man, I'm actually in the huddle with them. But Dan was always, serious. He would joke a little bit, but when it was time to practice and actually work on the stuff he was serious, focused, and he took control of the huddle. So we knew, playtime was over. If it was a water break or something, you could joke a little bit, but when we were working on stuff on the field, it was always serious. And then I think the thing when I really it shocked me because you work on stuff in practice, but we were playing a game, and I knew it was my rookie year, and we actually ran the 2-minute offense, and we had to score. And man, he took his play to me up to a whole nother level, and just ripped through the defense. And we were setting back, and he would throw the ball. He'd be like on the ball, and you turn around, and he's running down the field, and we trying to get back on the line of scrimmage because we back up. Then we got to wherever if he throws it 20 yards down the field, you got to try to get up there, get set because it's a hurry up offense. And we scored, and I know it was less than 2 minutes. It might have been a little bit over a minute, and I couldn't believe it. And you work on that stuff in practice, but when you see him just shred a defense up like that, you're like, oh my goodness, this guy is another level. So uh, I always had tremendous respect for the way he approached the game, and I learned from Dan how to approach the game, the mental part of it, preparing, watching film, this and that. So he was a great example, and the bar was already set when me and Keith got there. So it was, this is what you got to do if you're gonna play with us. It wasn't like, oh, we're gonna baby you guys because y'all rookies or whatever. This is what we expect. We got high expectations. And then I think that was what made it easier for us to transition as rookies because we got a ton of reps during the preseason, but it was that expectation that was drilled in us every day. There's Miami Dolphins, and this is how we do things. And I think that's why we had a lot of success, and then success individually, during our careers.
Yeah. You had a fantastic career, and one thing about Coach Shula that I really liked is that Coach Shula uh, developed a power game, in the 70s and early parts of the 80s. He gets Marino and it turns into basically an air raid offense for the most part. Then comes Jimmy Johnson, and outside of the locker room, people in media and of course the fan base, Jimmy tinkered a bit with the offense. He wanted to create a more balanced, more power led offense. Like he had over in Dallas, which got him a couple Super Bowls. So, from your perspective as a player, what was the significant change in terms of the offense that Jimmy Johnson brought to the table that we didn't see when Coach Shula before Coach Shula had left?
Yeah, I think the reason Coach Shula changed with Dan was because of his skill set and the things he was able to do. I think you look at a player's skill set and you try to put him in the best position and maximize the talent he has. So, um, as a lineman, you like running the football, this and that. But yeah, Jimmy came in and he put an emphasis on, running the football and playing really good defense. And that's when we started getting guys like Daryl Gardner, Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, Sam Madison, Pat Surtain. We already had Tim Bowens. He started building out that defense. So we got really, really good. Where early on we had really, really good offense. Our defense was okay at times, pretty good, but he really, really focused on that. And when he came in and kind of changed the offense or focused so much on the run, it really kind of limited Dan to what he was so well at doing. So I know that was kind of I'm sure that was tough, when you can do things better or do things, but as a player, if this is what the coaches want, that's what you do, and that's what I love about Dan Marino. He whatever you wanted him to do, he did it, and so it was definitely different. And but that's the part of being a professional. You want me to run the football? That's what I'm gonna do. You want to throw it? You just tell me what I need to do. Give me the play, and I'll go out and execute it to the best of my ability.
That's awesome. I mean, you guys did win. You guys did win some games, and defense was better. But I can't lie. I did miss the air assault that was that was Marino and so on, throwing to Burr and Clay, and later on to Irving Fryer, as well, and Mark Ingram and that tandem. With the Dolphins, with the Miami Dolphins, you left in at the end of the 2000 season. In 2001, you left the Fins and you signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. What led to that transition from going to Miami over to Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think what led to it was just I was starting to get a little older. I had some injuries, and the Dolphins. I think we really didn't get to a point where it was. I think once there was a coach then, and I tore my tricep twice, and so I had some elbow surgeries and stuff. So I had some wear and tear on my bodies, and I think they looked at it. It's not that they didn't want to sign me back, but they just said kind of go out there and see what you can get. And then I think what happened, they signed a couple of guys or whatever, and then I started talking and eventually signed with Cincinnati, and it gave me an opportunity to continue to play football. That's what I wanted to do. If I could have finished, my whole career with Miami, I would have. But it's part of the business, and I didn't take it personal, and I don't think they took it personal. And I had a couple of great years, and it gave me an opportunity to see how it was done with another organization. And they treated me first class. They had really great fans up there, especially because when I went there, they hadn't been to the playoffs in years. So for to have that kind of support from the fan base, that meant a lot to me. So I knew that was a good place. And then when I retired, I called the Dolphins and say, "Hey, I want to come back and retire Dolphin," and they welcomed me with open arms. So it's just part of the business, and I think that's the thing that sometimes you got to understand. I think you understand it more as you continue to play in this league because if you play that amount of time, sometimes it's not going to work out where you can just finish everything where you started, but you always don't want to burn any bridges. And most guys want to come back and retire with the team they spent the most time, and they welcomed me back with open arms, and I was happy, and I think they was happy. So it was a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, we're happy. I know you signed that 1 day contract to retire a Dolphin, and very happy you did that, as well. So we're happy to be retired as a Miami Dolphin.
Thank
Um, of course. So life after football. Before we get into the current team, life after football. So Richmond Webb retires a Miami Dolphin. He's multiple Pro Bowls, All Pro, offensive tackle, All Rookie. So retiring is in many cases for some players it's an easy transition. For others, it's not because you play the game for your entire life. Where were you at when you retired, and what have you done since then?
uh, it took a minute to, I'm gonna say, kind of debrief or get used to it because just certain times of the year, um, you used to working out with your teammates, and then mini camp starts, and then you kind of feel like, man, I should be at training camp, but you're not. And then training camp starts, and so it took me about, I think it took me about 4 years. The first couple of years, I really didn't watch much football because it was just, trying to make that transition, and it was a little tough. But after about 4 years, I kind of settled in and did that. And I'd always kind of dibbled and dabbled in some real estate investments, and I did some other little startup companies and did that. And then just was here raising my girls, did that. And my youngest is she's a senior in college now, so she'll graduate in May. And now I kind of do a little gardening. I got into that during COVID. I got stuck at home and couldn't go anywhere, so I started gardening. But I really like that really I really enjoy doing that. And then now just trying to I'm an empty nester now, so just I had a lot of free time, so me and the wife started to move around a little bit more. So just enjoying life, man, and having a good time. So I'm in a good space right now.
That's awesome. How long have you been married?
Uh, 20. It'll be 23 years next month. So yeah, been together for a little bit.
Yeah, congratulations. An
Thank you,
empty
thank
nester
you,
too. That's
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
My
Hmm.
kid is 4. He just turned 4 today, so today's his birthday.
Just got one.
He's got 1 year for now. Yeah, he's got 1.
Okay, okay, okay. Oh, today. Okay, so he's a January baby like me. My birthday's on the
Yes,
11th. So tell him happy birthday. Tell him
you
I said
got it.
happy birthday.
You got it.
Yeah.
I'll tell him. I said Richmond Webb says happy birthday. He'll go. Yeah, fatherhood's great. I can't lie. It's amazing.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay, so the NFL's changed a bit since you retired, and the Miami Dolphins they got bounced out of the playoffs. Unfortunately, lost to Kansas City. You're very vocal on X, in a positive way. You're very encouraging about the team, but you're very expressive on X. How do you feel about the current Miami Dolphins and overall, like Mike McDaniel, the way offense has changed, and so on.
Yeah, offense has changed so much to it's almost like um, Dan would have fit greatness era as much as teams throw the football now. But I think Coach McDaniel's doing a really good job.
I agree.
We're making progress each year. I was happy to see Tour stay healthy um, for the whole season. That was a plus. Austin Jackson, I thought had a breakout season. That was a plus. Bringing in guy like Vic Fangio for the defense, I thought that was a good thing. So he was making all the right moves to help the team become better, and then we end up going what was it, 11-6 or something like that. I know we had an opportunity to win the division or possibly had it first or second spot in the playoffs if we would have won a couple of games here and there, but we didn't. Kind of faltered at the end, and I think that's why a lot of people were a little irritated toward the end of the year because that's your last memory versus looking at the overall picture of from start to finish, how did we finish this and that. And so um, I think we are building this team the right way, and it's going in the right direction. So long as he continue to reassess and look at it and say, okay, what do I need to do to, make improvements, put us in a better position where we can, not only make it to the playoffs, but win a playoff game or possibly win a couple of games, this and that, and have an opportunity to play for the Super Bowl. I think everything's headed in the right direction. I'm happy.
I agree with you. A lot of the fan base is down on his play calling. I mean, I just think that it's the second year the team has improved. Tua has put up amazing numbers. Tyreek Hill
Mhm.
had almost an MVP caliber year. If he doesn't get hurt in that Titans game, it's a 2,000-yard season. So I just think we just have to trust the process a bit and be
Yeah,
a bit patient, as far as the fan base goes. But I do like the direction this team's going. If the only thing I will say, I do think that towards the end of the season, I think when we face playoff caliber teams, McDaniel rolled back the creativity a little bit as far as his play calling goes, and
yeah,
abandoned the run against Kansas City, especially in that weather. I think would have suited us a bit more if we would have pounded the ball a bit more. But nonetheless, I mean, listen, Dan Campbell, I know his decision making was very questionable in his last game, but 3 wins, 9 wins, and then he put his team within a couple quarters of winning, going to the Super Bowl. And I think the Dolphins are within are heading that direction because there's been improvements on the offense side of the ball and record wise throughout the season. So I do think that we're heading in the right way with Mike McDaniel calling plays and with Tua, at quarterback leading the offense. If everything just falls, everything has to come together as a whole. We finish games and everything is just simpatico, both offense and defense.
yeah. You bring up some great points, Will, and you get it, you understand it, and the other thing is, like you said, this is Coach McDaniel's first year being a head coach, so it's different. He's learning the process in some of these areas, just like that, and I agree. I think later on in the season, you got to be able to make those adjustments, recognize them quicker, this and that, and like I said, run the football. And if you look at in the playoffs, every team, especially that division round, they were really pounding that football, all four teams. So you got to be able to run the football. It's good to get the 60, 70-yard plays, but you got to be able to run and just mash and mash and really get physical and that seemed like that's the formula if you want to keep advancing in the playoffs and have a chance to, to play in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, like you said, he had a great year. It could have made some adjustments and stuff later on in the season and this and that. But I think that's something you reflect back on and say, okay, when I look at it, why did this area of the season didn't go like this year? He seemed like he watches a ton of film. Really smart guy. Went to Yale. I think we're in good hands. Like you said, it's just he's learning and say, okay, and just like Dan Campbell, he's learning and saying, you know what, maybe I should have kicked the field goal on one of them instead of just being too aggressive, because during regular season you get another shot, but playoffs is one and done if it doesn't work. So it's just a learning process. But yeah, I think we're in good hands. I agree with you.
Yeah. I agree as well. And Mr. Webb, thank you so much, for joining us today here at 305 Sports Now. Again, it's a pleasure having you on. You're always welcome whenever you want to come on. If you're promoting something, you can come on as well. So I was very happy to have you on. Again, it's an honor to have you on the show. I grew up a fan of yours as a kid, so it's kind of geeking out here having you talking to you.
Well, hey, Will, I appreciate it, man. And the fans show me a lot of love, and I'm a fan now. That's what I tell people now. I don't play anymore. Yeah, I played for the Dolphins, but I'm a fan, and I want to see them do well, and this and that. So thankful for having me on your platform, and appreciate you showing me love and talking about the accolades that I did accomplish while I was playing. That does mean a lot. You didn't have to do that, but yeah, maybe we'll do it a little bit later. But one thing for sure, we both want to see the Dolphins do well. And I'm loving your car. Maybe you'll give me the keys. Let me take it for a spin when I come down to Miami.
I'll email it to you. So, best I can do, I'll email it to you.
I'll take it, brother. That'll work for me.
Listen, I'll say it publicly, like I told you before we started the show. You should be in the Hall of Fame, and I think it's a shame that you're not. I know it takes sometimes a little longer for linemen. It took Larry Allen for like a century to get in. And Larry Allen, blocked for 2,000-yard backs in Zonka and Morris. But I really do believe, they have to look. The committee has to look at you, and you need a gold jacket in Canton, Ohio, because you totally deserve it. You and Keith, as well, because of what you did as Miami Dolphins, especially with what I read with your accolades. So hope to see that happen soon. Okay.
Thank you. We got Zach in there, so hopefully,
yes.
it's we're starting to get him in there. So yeah, we just got to be a little patient. But I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you heard, and don't forget, you can also follow Richmond Webb on X. He's very active, and he's very interactive with the fans as well. So if you want to follow Richmond Webb on X. But if you like what you heard, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. God bless, guys. See you soon. Go Fins. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Go Fins. Bye-bye.